Chapter 91, Yes. Regardless of whether Suanon told him or not, Han Longyi would never lie in front of him. As long as Gumo Cheng asked, he would tell the truth. Because you wouldn't invest in his project. This Suhua is pretty good. I must let him take care of you. He doesn't even take you as my daughter. Thinking about Suhua beating up Suanon and Su Rochu, Han Longyi got angry in his heart. Suanon had never seen such a shameless father, not even she could do it. He had to say that Suanon could. He definitely could. Absolutely. Damn, if we invest in this project, we will not lose anything. Who would be so stupid as to invest in this project? Xiaoyan, who was at the side, heard them. Suhua thought that since he gave his daughter to second brother would give the goose to him to ruin, Xiaoyan said angrily. After Gumo Cheng finished listening to what Han Longyi had to say, he smirked and laughed coldly. Since he wants me to invest so much, I'll invest. Hearing Gumo Cheng's cold voice, Han Longyi and Xiaoyan had a bad premonition. They were sure that after Gumo Cheng had invested the money, his losses would be even worse. Second brother, you don't need to do anything. Su's being targeted is a problem. There are already many companies eyeing him. Before long, Su's will be finished. There's a big difference between letting him die and letting him die in my hands, Gumo Cheng said. Suhua thought that his money was crazy, so he gave it to him generously. Second brother, the sister-in-law is so afraid of him, he might have a weakness. When Han Longyi thought about Su Rochu, who was on the top floor, he couldn't help but remind him. Gumo Cheng understood. He hung up. Xiaoyan watched as Han Longyi put away the wine cup. He continued to drink and said, Second brother, you're angry. Su Anan belongs to second brother. If Su Hua hit her, how can second brother not be angry? Han Longyi asked. They had once seen Gumo Cheng fight with his life on the line for a woman in a race car. Once he classified a person as his own, Gumo Cheng would do everything to protect her. He has his heart set on Su Anan, Xiaoyan followed. If he was not interested, Gumo Cheng would not attack Su Hua. Han Longyi did not accept his words. He thought about what Su Anan had said to him. She hoped that second brother would fall in love with Su Anan in the future. In September, Su Anan and Fuxin had to go to university. She couldn't lose face for Su family's Su Rochu. Adding that Su Hua didn't want her to lose control of herself, she could only study in Peace City's university. Fuxin and Su Anan were in the same school. Fuxin's grade was not as good as Su Anan's, but luckily she was forced by Lu Heng to spend all her time reading until midnight, and her grade was still lacking a bit, so Lu Heng paid for her to study in the same building and helped Fuxin settle the matters of the university. It was the happiest thing for the two people to stick together. Su Anan was used to staying at boarding schools. After Su Rochu's accident, she was thrown into the boarding school by Su Hua. This time, she was unwilling to go to the university to stay in her dorm. She couldn't bear to part with Gumo Cheng. Su Anan had studied architecture, and her grades had already reached the level of administrative. Fuxin's mother wanted Fuxin to do some work in the office in the future, and wouldn't give her any trouble. Before going to school, Su Anan received a call from Su Hua. From the last time Su Hua had lashed out at her, a week had passed. Su Anan had never talked about investing in the Sus with Gumo Cheng. She had always planned for Su Hua to call her and interrogate her, and insisted that if Gumo Cheng did not agree, her abilities were insufficient. She received a call from Su Hua. Su Hua's tone on the phone was very good, so good that Su Anan thought that there was a problem with her hearing. An, your dad has something to give you. Go to the cafe downstairs in Su's and wait for me. Su Hua's tone was extremely strange. She went to the coffee shop that Su Hua talked about. When Su Hua saw her, he revealed a smile. That smile said that he was trying to curry favor with her. Anan, quickly sit down. You can order whatever you want to eat, Su Hua said and handed the menu over to Su Anan. Su Anan was confused by Su Hua's warm smile. When had he ever been so good to her? Never in her memory. When she was young, she would often see someone else's father taking them to a restaurant to eat and play with them, but she didn't. The one who accompanied her to eat and play was Su Rochu. At first, she thought Su Hua was very busy, so he didn't have time to accompany her. While she was talking about how hard it was for Su Hua, she saw Su Hua holding on to Jiang Mei's hand as they sat outside the restaurant that night, eating and drinking together, talking and laughing. She stood just outside the dining room, watching the family enjoy themselves in the wind. When her sister came over, she brought ice cream for her. She had always liked eating ice cream, so she didn't taste it that night. She tried learning from Su Zihan to hug her thighs, speaking to him in a spoiled manner. Su Hua pushed her away and told her to scram. These things happened when she was very young, because it was so unforgettable, she remembered it all now. I'm not hungry. Su Hua's current flattery no longer posed any threat to her. She looked at his smile and thought that Su Hua was treating her so well, and did not plan any tricks. How laughable, even she had to be wary of her father treating her to a meal. Then Daddy will give you some. Su Hua laughed and said, I'll give you some prawns, pickled fish, and beef with iron plates. Hearing Su Hua's words, the corner of Su Anan's mouth hooked up into a cold and mocking smile. She was already so old, but Su Hua didn't know that she was allergic to shrimp. She didn't want to talk anymore, so she didn't have any intention to lie to Su Hua anymore. And Anne, thank you for your hard work during this period of time, Suwa said happily. As he spoke, he noticed that Suanan's expression wasn't good. He looked at her indifferently and said, Father knows that you followed Mr. Gu and is aggrieved in his heart. But there's really no other way. Behind Zihan is the Zhang family, and when you guys start a fight, Father will help you and the Zhang family will deal with you. Oh, Suanan replied. This meant that Suwa truly loved her and was afraid that Zhang family would deal with her. That was why he helped Zihan and the others when Zihan bullied her. Why did it sound so funny? If Suwa really doted on her, then shouldn't he stand up to protect her? What was he afraid of? A Zhang family? Daddy has always loved you, Suwa continued. Mu Jinyu had been carrying you and Zihan since a long time ago, and this kind of man isn't worth you taking. This sentence, Suwa was right. So I let you and Jinyu annul the engagement so that you wouldn't be spoiled by him. Suanan laughed. She heard the heartfelt words from Suwa. She just wanted to laugh. When Mu Jinyu was together with Su Zihan, as his father, he should have told her earlier, not hidden it from her for 2 years. Only when Gu Mocheng came to the Su family to propose marriage and when he was unwilling to marry her, did she discover the relationship between Mu Jinyu and Su Zihan. And Anne, seeing that Suanan was smiling and not saying anything, Suwa laughed. You are following Mr. Gu now, not bad. Yes, Suanan replied. Indeed. She admitted that Gu Mocheng was indeed very, very good. Humans can't be perfect in every aspect. It's normal for them to have some flaws. Was he saying that Gu Mocheng was incomplete? However, the Mr. Gu is so good to you, don't do anything that would let him down. Suwa said as if he was hinting at something. Do you want to do something that would let Gu Mocheng down? It was Suwa and the others who thought that Suanan was secretly involved in a relationship behind Gu Mocheng's and a strange man's back. What they did not know was that the strange man that Suanan was having a secret affair with was Gu Mocheng. He did not know how Su Zihan and the others thought that, if a person had money and secrets, they would definitely look ugly and incomplete. Could it be that he was handsome and perfect, or that he was afraid of showing his face too many times? And An, you have to serve the Mr. Gu well. Suwa saw that Suanan was lost in thought and spoke with a clear tone of voice. Mr. Gu is a good person. Suanan had never said that Gu Mocheng was a good person before. He had only mentioned that Gu Mocheng would at most say that he wanted Gu Mocheng to invest in him. Could Gu Mocheng have invested money into the Sus? Gu Mocheng gave you money? Suanan asked excitedly. Gu Mocheng didn't know? If he put this money into it, he would not lose anything. Anan, what do you mean by giving me money? Suwa unhappily criticized. Mr. Gu only invested money into the project because he saw the development value of the project. Suanan did not know much about business matters, but to her knowledge, his project was something that not even the Jiang family was willing to involve. Something that the Jiang family was not willing to help was definitely worthless. Serve the Mr. Gu well for me, Suwa said coldly, before he added, if you offend the Mr. Gu, then I won't recognize you as my daughter. After all was said and done, Suwa was afraid that Suanan would offend Gu Mocheng and cut off his road to riches. When Suanan heard her, she clenched her fists. She looked at Suwa's face and could not even eat a single mouthful of food on the table. Suwa looked at Suanan's calm face and felt that her tone was a little fierce. No matter what, it was because of Suanan that Gu Mocheng invested money into his project. All right, Anan. It's not like Dad doesn't consider your feelings at all. With that, Suwa took out a card from the pocket of his suit. Here's 200,000 yuan. The school is about to start, so you need to prepare your clothes properly. Do not dress sloppily and throw Mr. Gu's face. Suanan looked at the card on the table, thinking back to the scene of him asking Suwa for money in the past. When she asked for over 1,000, Suwa scolded her for being a prodigal and even wanted to beat her up. Therefore, she went out to work part-time early and went on a car racing trip for a bonus. Chapter 92. However, the management of the Sus has not been doing well recently. The money invested by Gu Mocheng cannot be touched. You? Suwa didn't say anything, but Suanan took the card on the table and unceremoniously placed it inside her bag. Thank you, Dad. It was rare for Suwa to be so generous as to give his money, so why would she be embarrassed? Suwa watched as Suanan quickly put the card into her bag. He was stunned. Perhaps he thought that Suanan should be polite with him, or thought that she had given too much and rejected it. He said that the management of the Sus was not doing well. Unexpectedly, Suanan thanked him and directly put the card away. Anan, didn't you hear me? What? Suanan pursed her lips into a smile and said, I will remember everything Father said. Don't worry, I will serve Mr. Gu well in the Gu family. With that, Suanan stood up and was about to leave. Father, I don't have any money on me. Don't forget to pay for this meal. Suanan watched as Suwa turned and left. She didn't have any money. He had just given her 200,000. Suwa thought bitterly. He gave 200,000 to Suanan. He did not expect Suanan to immediately take it away. Once Suanan left the restaurant, she ran over to the bank to check on Suwa's bank account. After confirming that Suwa had really given him 200,000, Suanan immediately took out his card and asked the bank staff to transfer the money to her card. After that, When Suwa suddenly said that he would return the money to her, she said that he was too stingy towards her in the past. It was rare for Suwa to be so generous to her. She did not want it for nothing. He had to save the money to treat his sister's illness. She came back on time for dinner, and the first thing she did was run out and get him a pair of slippers. Gu Mocheng felt a warm sensation in his heart when he saw her holding a pair of slippers and drinking water for him. My dad asked me to meet him today and gave me this, Suanan said. She took out Suwa's card and handed it over to Gu Mocheng. I've taken out the money inside to put in the other cards. Yes. Gu Mocheng was not surprised at all that Suwa had sought Suanan. As for Suwa's project, he sent the vice chairman to negotiate, proposing to use Suwa's 10% shares in exchange. He didn't know if it was because Suwa was desperate or because he felt that Suanan was easy to control, so he agreed to this condition. Gu Mocheng understood Suwa's intentions. His final goal was not to help Suwa stabilize the situation in the Sus, but rather the opposite. I gave it to you, so take it, Gu Mocheng said. Keep it for yourself. Suanan nodded her head. Gu Mocheng was very rich. He would never set his eyes on her 200,000. It was just that she felt that Gu Mocheng treated her as his wife, so she had something to tell him. Is this how it is for a husband and wife to confess? At the age of 20, she had just been in love and didn't know how to run a marriage, but she would try to be a wife. Yes. Suanan smiled towards Gu Mocheng and replied. Looking at Gu Mocheng in front of her, her heart felt warm. Then, she restrained herself, stood on her tiptoes, and kissed him on the cheek. After kissing him, she quickly retreated and said, I'm going to prepare the things to go to school. Gu Mocheng looked at her joyful figure and felt his hot and wet cheeks. He couldn't help but smile. Following that, he thought about how Suanan had gone to study, and he almost forgot his little wife was going to study at Ningcheng University. Because Suanan was going to study at a university, Gu Mocheng asked her to call Fuxin for dinner. Suanan quickly replied. These few days, she had been receiving many calls from Fuxin. As school was about to open, Fuxin harassed her every day, urging her to go out to play. Suanan was used to messing around, so she was very clear in her heart that Fuxin's so-called going out and playing was to play around. In the past, no one cared about Suanan in the Su family, as Fuxin's mother cared for her current husband and stepdaughter, and she did not have the time to care about Fuxin. Therefore, the two of them would often hang out together, go to bars, go to the roadside stall, or run to the car racing field to have a comfortable match with the others. But it was different now. With Gu Mocheng by her side, she had to be the obedient wife that Gu Mocheng liked. Really? Suanan and Fuxin discussed together. Fuxin agreed to Gu Mocheng treating her to a meal. Hearing Fuxin's cheerful voice, Suanan was worried that she would not ask any inappropriate questions when they started to eat. For example, asking for the relationship between Gu Mocheng and Xiaoyan. The restaurant that Gu Mocheng invited guests to was called Jade Phoenix Restaurant in Peace City. It was a new restaurant that was opened last year, and the Chinese cuisine there was very delicious. The owner of the restaurant had incredible business skills. He had cooked the restaurant very well over the course of a year, and it was hard to find a place to stay. As expected, it was just as Suanan had expected. When Fuxin saw Gu Mocheng, not only her eyes lit up, she had also been holding on to Gu Mocheng's hands without letting go. Xiaoxin. Suanan reminded Fuxin. Fuxin laughed and unwillingly let go of Gu Mocheng's hand. She sat in front of Suanan and said in a low voice, The more I look, the more handsome I feel. Anan, you definitely won't starve yourself if you follow him. Fuxin followed her. Before Suanan could understand what she meant, she heard Fuxin say, With just that face, there must be a lot of women who want to take care of him. Once she finished speaking, Suanan immediately reached out to cover her mouth. Suanan's actions caused a reaction from Gu Mocheng, who was in the middle of ordering dishes. What do you want to eat? Gu Mocheng asked, giving the menu to Suanan and Fuxin. Fuxin stood up and accepted it. Thank you, Mr. Gu, then I won't be polite. As she said that, Suanan saw Fuxin unceremoniously order a table of dishes enough for 6 people. Xiaoxin is too much, there's only 3 of us, Suanan reminded. Fuxin looked down at Suanan. How long have you followed Mr. Gu for? Anan's elbow wasn't wrong. Gu Mocheng took over Fuxin's words and said. Fuxin was startled and immediately understood. Mr. Gu is right. Suanan also understood Gu Mocheng's words and lowered her head with a red face. Because of Gu Mocheng's protection, the more Fuxin looked at him, the more she liked him. What kind of luck did Anan have to be able to pick up such a good man? No matter whether it was his family background or character or his heart, Gu Mocheng would never know where he had lost Mu Jinyu. Anan, you really earned it. Fuxin sincerely sighed. Gu Mocheng really couldn't find him even while holding a lantern. Why didn't she meet him? Sigh. After Fuxin finished ordering, she thought of something and glanced at Suanan, who was looking at him lovingly. She smiled. Mr. Gu, can I have a bottle of red wine? Upon hearing about the red wine, Suanan subconsciously swallowed her saliva. Fuxin must have purposely ordered red wine because she clearly knew that she liked drinking wine, especially red wine. A girl took the initiative to ask for wine. Gu Mocheng intentionally looked at her for a bit, then said, Sure. Miss Fu likes to drink? Gu Mocheng asked. Yes, Fushin laughed. She generally liked alcohol, but Su Anan liked to drink the most. She was sure that Anan would say that she did not drink in front of Gumocheng. It should be interesting to let Anan watch him slowly savor the red wine. Anan, do you want it? Fushin deliberately asked Suanan, why don't we each have a bottle? Suanan was greedy and would take the initiative to ask for wine in the end. Judging from her appearance after drinking wine, Gumocheng must have been greatly shocked. When Fushin asked, Gumocheng looked at her, waiting for his reply. Suanan immediately waved her hand. I don't know how to drink. Xiaoxin, you know that I won't touch a single drop of wine. Saying that, Suanan glared at Fushin. Oh. Fushin laughed. I forgot. Then I'll have the red wine today. Hearing Fushin's words, Suanan gritted her teeth in anger. She knew very well that she would not drink in front of Gumocheng, but Fushin still intentionally ordered her beloved red wine, so she looked at Xiaoxin. It was cruel. Anan, do you want to drink or drink? Gumocheng asked. Suanan had no choice but to follow Gumocheng's instructions. Water. At the table, the three of them ate happily. Most of the time, Suanan and Fushin chatted for a long time before she could say a single word. Miss Fu, what has CEO Lu been busy with recently? When Gumocheng suddenly mentioned Lu Heng, upon hearing Boss Lu, the chopsticks in Fushin's hand trembled and the dish dropped onto the table. Uncle is quite busy. Lu Heng. Gumocheng said simply. He was not asking about Lu Heng's father, but Lu Heng. Although Gumocheng was not familiar with him, he still admired Lu Heng a lot. Lu Heng had taken over the Lu for 5 years, and during these 5 years, he could see the Lu moving up the line. He and Lu Heng were two different people. Gumocheng treated people coldly, and Lu Heng treated people warmly and kindly, but the two of them acted the same way. He's on a business trip. Pushing replied. Why did I have to ask her where Lu Heng is whenever I run into one? Was Lu Heng that popular? If you're free, I'll treat young Master Lu to a meal. Gumocheng said as he held his cup and sipped the red wine. Very few people were able to make Gumocheng take the initiative to treat them to a meal. Fushin was startled. She had heard the same thing from Lu Heng's mouth. She told Lu Heng about Gumocheng and his matters. Lu Heng asked, when would he be treating Gumocheng to a meal? All right, Big Brother also said that I'll treat you to a meal. Fushin said. Yes. Gumocheng replied as he put down his wine cup and helped Suanan to eat. Halfway through eating, Suanan really couldn't stand the wine in Fushin's hand that was shaking about. The dark red liquid enticed Suanan to the point that she wanted to commit a crime. She could only think of drinking the water as red wine, but that wouldn't be enough to satisfy her craving. When would she be able to take a sip of red wine? It was hard to bear. It was really hard to bear. So Suanan had to use the toilet as an excuse to run out and enjoy the wind. She had wanted to drag Fushin along, but Fushin couldn't move an inch when she was focused on the delicacies and red wine. Chapter 93. When Suanan returned from the bathroom, she realized that the corridor inside the restaurant was like a maze. The doors to every room were about the same. When she came here, she had followed Gumocheng in, so she couldn't remember which room it was at all. She wanted to call them and ask them, but she realized that she wasn't wearing her phone right now. Suanan could only rely on her impression of him to find a room. She pushed open the door and entered, only to see a man inside. I'm sorry, I walked the wrong way, Suanan said. The man raised his head, looked at Suanan and said, I'm fine. Suanan closed the door behind her. When she closed the door, she took a look inside. There were a lot of dishes on the table. Moreover, this man wore a pair of glasses that looked refined and gentle, making Suanan feel that she was familiar with him. After she closed the door, a cold smile appeared on the face of the man in the room. The fierce look in his eyes slowly seeped through the lens. They look really alike. He took out a cigarette from the table and began to smoke. 7 years ago, he hated smoking the most. 7 years later, he would feel sick if he did not smoke a cigarette. Cigarettes are like love, hateful and unquenchable. Someone knocked on the door. It was the manager of this restaurant. He had obtained the man's permission to enter, so he walked over to the man and placed the notebook in his hand on the table. The man looked at the screen and said nothing. Mr. Hao, this man should be Gumocheng. Inside was the scene in Gumocheng's and Suanan's private box. His eyes were cold as he stared at the computer, slowly smoking and puffing out clouds of smoke. Go down. After a while, he lightly said to the manager. After the restaurant manager left, the room became quiet. It wasn't until the sky turned completely dark and it rained down from the outside that Mr. Hao, who was sitting on a chair, stood up. He dragged his broken feet to the window and watched the rain beat against it. It had been 7 years, and his feet hurt like hell when it rained. Then it began to rain, and his feet began to hurt again. As soon as his foot hurt, he took out a cigarette and smoked. Sir? Someone else knocked on the door and entered the room. Mr. Hao looked at the person who walked in front of him. Teacher's not in good health, don't catch a cold. I'm fine. Huo Sheng said indifferently. Go ahead. I found it. The reason the SUS can continue its project is because Gumocheng has invested 30 million. 30 million? This number was not small, but was the SUS project enough? The government? Huo Sheng turned around and asked while holding on to her cigarette. The problem with the Sue's project was that the government officials did not agree to his development. No matter how much money he invested, the final result would be overturned with just a single word from the government. Gumo Cheng did not send anyone to greet him. In that case, Gumo Cheng is throwing money inside. Hu Sheng laughed coldly. Maybe Gumo Cheng has a background. Huh? Hu Sheng laughed. As she had been standing at the window for a long time, his eyeglasses had become blurry. He took off his glasses and used a tissue to wipe them. What you mean is that, like us, Gumo Cheng wants to deal with the Sues. As he spoke, he looked at Mr. Hao, who had taken off his glasses. Mr. Hao, who had taken them off, had a pair of eyes that made people's hearts tremble. Those eyes were filled with hatred. It's not the same, Huo Sheng said as she lowered her head to look at the notebook on the table. The computer screen was still monitoring everything in Gumo Cheng's private room. Suhua doesn't have any conscience, nor do I have any feelings for him. Huo Sheng put on her glasses and continued. Gumo Cheng will not waste any time and money on such a person. He is indeed going to deal with the Sues, but the difference is that he wants to protect Suanan. Then do we still need to continue dealing with the Sues? The man asked. Huo Sheng laughed as she shook her head. There's no rush. Since Gumo Cheng wants to deal with Suhua first, then we shall wait first. Wait until the time is right, then you can come and help. At that time, ask Suhua to buy his daughter again. All right, Mr. Hao. After saying that, the man turned around and left the room. Huo Sheng watched as the door of the private room was closed. The silence in the room made him uncomfortable, especially when she heard the noisy rain. When the pain was terrible, he took out his cigarette and smoked again. The scene in the notebook on the table stopped. He moved his finger and enlarged Suanan's face. Rochu, you've forsaken me. Since I can't find your person, how about I take revenge on your most beloved sister? As he spoke to himself, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile, and his eyes became frighteningly cold. When she finished smoking the cigarette, Huo Sheng looked at the light shining on the cigarette in her hand. When she thought about the person in her memories, the smile on her face turned incomparably sorrowful. Suanan looked around, afraid that she would push the wrong room again. She could only open the door and peek inside. After she looked at the 3 to 4 private rooms, the front door opened and Gumo Cheng walked out. Where did he go? Gumo Cheng asked as he walked closer. The rooms over here are almost the same. I almost got lost. Suanan laughed mischievously. Gumo Cheng looked at the hallway. He felt that there was something wrong with this restaurant. Anan, you just returned. I almost finished all the food. Fuxin said as he saw Suanan coming back. The feeling of the sunlight shining through the curtains on her body was really warm. It was as if she was sleeping inside a blanket that was filled with Gumo Cheng's scent. Suanan opened her eyes and looked at her body's position out of habit. The place where her body was caved in, and there was still some of the warmth left on the bed from Gumo Cheng's body. Just as Suanan was about to get off the bed to find clothes to change into, Gumo Cheng's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and hesitated on whether she should pick it up. It was the old lady Gu's phone, and the phone kept ringing. She had the feeling that if Gumo Cheng didn't answer her phone, she would always be on the phone. Suanan picked up, and old lady Gu's voice came from the other side. Success. Quickly bring the little girl back for me to play with. Show her? Suanan felt that it was weird listening to the old mistress. Why aren't you talking? She heard the old lady Gu speak again. Ever since she had met Suanan, she had been worrying about Gumo Cheng returning to her house. In the past, Gumo Cheng was very busy and didn't have much time left. She didn't feel bored with the old man and the stinky kid Ziming accompanying her. He had been thinking about the little girl all this time, so he made a call to urge Gumo Cheng to bring the girl back quickly. It wasn't that Suanan was silent, she just didn't know what to say. At the very beginning when she saw old lady Gu, she called him grandma. New family intentionally ran over to help her. She did not know that it was Gumo Cheng's mother, so she called him auntie. Behind him, the madam became unhappy and made her call him mother instead. Then, should she call the madam mother now? While Suanan was struggling to form a greeting, the old lady Gu on the other side felt that something was amiss. Usually when he was on the phone with Gumo Cheng, even though Gumo Cheng didn't talk much, he had never been silent for so long. Could it be a little girl? Mom. While she was thinking, she heard a soft voice coming from the phone. Mom. This was what she liked. She really was a little girl. Old lady Gu coughed a few times, not letting her happiness leak out. It's an Anne, right? Yes, yes. A person called Suanan called out to her, causing her face to turn red, as she touched her hot face and said, I knew I wouldn't answer Gumo Cheng's call. It's so awkward. It took me so long to get back on the phone. What are you doing? The old lady Gu deliberately said with a stern voice. She liked to see the little girl look scared and obedient, so she had to hurry Cheng Cheng to bring her home. He's taking a bath. Suanan had not finished speaking when the old lady started getting excited. Cheng Cheng was taking a bath so early in the morning. Could it be that they were there just now? The more she thought about it, the happier she became. She felt that her long-awaited grandson was about to come out. No, he was about to come out. Work hard. The madam's words were enigmatic, But Suanon understood her meaning, and she replied with N. No. The madam also felt that something was amiss. Cheng Chengdu's family was in their 30s, and they were always like that during the daytime. How could they bear it? When Cheng Cheng came back with the little girl, he had to make some soup to nourish his body. Suanon didn't know what to say to the old mistress, but she was afraid that she would say the wrong thing. This would make the old lady Gu unhappy, making it difficult for Gu Mocheng to stay in the middle. What do you mean by not saying anything? You have a problem with me. As she was thinking, she heard old lady Gu's unhappy voice. No. Suanon immediately replied in fear. Hearing Suanon's panicked voice, the old lady Gu pursed her lips and laughed. The little girl was truly frightened. It's good that you don't have any, the madam said in a righteous tone. You have been in the sect for so long, and yet you did not know to come back to see me. You are too unfilial. I'm sorry, Suanon said apologetically. Then tell me, when will we return to the old mansion? This matter was not up to Suanon to decide. When Suanon heard the door to the bathroom open, she immediately turned around and passed the phone to Gu Mocheng. Your mother's phone call. As he said that, he stuffed the phone in Cheng's hands and rushed into the bathroom. Seeing Suanon so flustered, he guessed that her mother had scared her. Gu Mocheng held his phone and heard old lady Gu's unhappy questions. Why aren't you talking? I just don't want to see an old woman like me. It's me, Gu Mocheng said. Hearing it was Gu Mocheng's voice, old lady Gu immediately became terrified. She had no choice. She was not afraid of her husband, Gu Zhen, but she was afraid of her son the most. Hearing it was Gu Mocheng's voice, old lady Gu immediately became terrified. She had no choice. She was not afraid of her husband, Gu Zhen, but she was afraid of her son the most. Your father told you to bring him back quickly and let him have a look. Old lady Gu could only use the name of her man. Chapter 94. Gu Mocheng had once angered his father because of a woman, and the relationship between father and son slowly improved. Bringing Suanon back to his home, even if they didn't rush him, he had his own plans. He planned to bring her back to see his parents and have a meal with them during this period of time. Since he couldn't get the certificate from Suanon, he had to bring the person back. All right, I'll call you after I've decided on a time. With that, old lady Gu could not bear to hang up the phone. Chen, what's her phone number? When she was bored and had nothing to do, she could just find her daughter-in-law to play cards, rub her hands like a mahjong, go get beauty done, and run errands while she was at it. She would pour some water and carry some things. The main point was the meaning behind his words. She lacked an interesting person to accompany her and relieve her boredom. Gu Mocheng still understood his mother's thoughts. The old lady was too bored. She had already tired of Gu Ziming, so she decided to focus on him now. The reason for the call today was precisely because of Suanon. She's still reading. She doesn't play on her cell phone. Don't play on a phone? Old lady Gu would never believe such a terrible lie. Ziming at home had 4 or 5 mobile phones to play with. Don't lie to me, old lady Gu said. Nope. Gu Mocheng immediately replied and gave old lady Gu Suanon's number. According to his understanding of his own mother, the first half of old lady Gu's life was too comfortable, and the second half was too boring. Fine, old lady Gu could only say this, but when Gu Mocheng brought the person back, she secretly asked for the little girl. Thinking about how his life had gained the little Mrs. Company, old lady Gu's mood became even better. Before hanging up the phone, she reminded Gu Mocheng, just bring the person back this week. All right. Suanon hid in the bathroom and watched as Gu Mocheng finished his call before walking out. She was a little afraid of her mother-in-law. She always felt that her mother-in-law wanted to treat her like a toy. Min, Suanon's feeling is right. You don't have to answer my mom's call, Gu Mocheng explained. Suanon nodded. She would not answer old lady Gu's phone call the next time. It was a beautiful new day, especially when she opened her eyes and saw the clear blue sky, the bright sunlight, or when she went downstairs and saw the man she liked waiting for her. After Suanon finished changing her clothes, she went downstairs and was stunned when she saw Gu Mocheng in the living room. These few days, when she woke up, Gu Mocheng was already gone and had gone to the Gu's. Gu Mocheng slept late and woke up early. There were several times when Suanon woke up and saw him get up. She would feel extremely blissful, even if Gu Mocheng hadn't touched her recently. Hubby, Suanon was used to this form of address. From the first day she came to the Gu household, she had been informed by Gu Mocheng that he was her husband in the future. Yes, Gu Mocheng put down the computer in his hand and watched Suanon walk towards him with a smile on her face. Are you not going to the Gu's today? Suanon asked curiously. At this time, Gu Mocheng had already held an early morning meeting on the top floor of the Gu's, but today he was sitting on the sofa in the living room and reading a computer. Yes, on a business trip? As Suanon was thinking, she heard Gu Mocheng say, You go eat breakfast first. After he finished speaking, the Uncle Chen who had prepared breakfast came over with a smile and interrupted him. Sir knows that you will be going to school. He was waiting for you early in the morning and said that he would send you over. Hearing Uncle Chen's words, Suanon's eyes lit up and she looked at Gu Mocheng in anticipation. Really? When her elder sister wasn't crazy, she gave it to her elder sister as a gift when she went to school for the first time. Suhua pushed her way through too many things. He had never given her any. Suhua was summoned to school because she fought while skipping classes. However, every time Suhua had a meeting with her family, he would wait for her to come home and beat her to a pulp without saying a word. What Suhua did not know was that she had sat there on purpose. Only if something happened at school would Suhua rush back to school, and only then would she feel that he also had a father. Afterwards, when her sister had gone mad, she had grown up and understood the ways of the world. She no longer wanted to wait for Suhua to send her to school. Suhua was so unconcerned about herself. Why did she bring ridicule upon herself? To breakfast, Gumocheng said indifferently. Gumocheng indirectly answered Su Anan's question with a smile and quickly went to the dining table to eat breakfast. Gumocheng, who was sitting on the sofa, did not continue looking at the computer. The place where he stood could just see Su Anan in the dining hall. Su Anan was eating breakfast right now, and she was eating her breakfast deliciously and quickly. Seeing that she was so easily satisfied, Gumocheng felt that he should treat her better. This was his wife, and he had to love her for the rest of his life. Su Anan finished her breakfast as fast as she could. She had prepared the things to go to school last night. After breakfast, the servant had already taken down her suitcase. Seeing Su Anan's luggage, Gumocheng frowned and asked, "Bring so many things?" Yes, Su Anan nodded. She forgot that she had told Gumocheng about the start of school, and not that she wanted to stay in the dorm. The school rules state that the freshmen must live in the school. Even if they are from the city, they must live there, Su Anan replied. She wanted to come back, but there was nothing she could do. Oh, Gumocheng replied and did not continue speaking. Su Anan followed Gumocheng out of the Gu household, one in the front and one in the back. Inside the carriage, Gumocheng was busy handling some urgent items. He was on the phone again to tell his subordinates how to implement it. Su Anan, who was sitting at the side, did not dare to disturb Gumocheng. She was just playing on her phone and meeting up with Fuxin at a place. Because she had someone by her side to accompany her, Su Anan did not feel bored even though there was a heavy traffic jam on the road. After reaching school, Gumocheng put down the documents in her hands and asked, "What time do we end class tonight?" "I don't know yet," Su Anan replied. "There shouldn't be any classes today, right? I'll send you the class schedule later." "All right," Gumocheng replied. Su Anan looked at Gumocheng and unwillingly opened the car door. She turned her head and met eyes with Gumocheng, who was looking at her. "What's wrong?" Gumocheng asked. Su Anan pursed her lips, looked at Gumocheng, then glanced at the driver in front of her and brazenly leaned towards Gumocheng and kissed him on the cheek. A kiss quickly fell, so fast that Gumocheng did not even have a chance to react. By the time he could react, Su Anan had already left the car. Gumocheng touched the place where he had been kissed by Su Anan. He had been tricked by the little girl before, but when he thought about it, the corner of his mouth quirked up into a smile. Anan. After Su Anan got off the car, she did not enter the entrance of the university. She stood at the entrance, waiting for Fuxin to come over. Not long after, she heard Fuxin's voice. She turned around and saw Fuxin getting out of a Bentley car. After Fuxin came out, she did not leave immediately. She did not know what the people in the carriage had said, but her small face had immediately sunk down. She was extremely unhappy. Su Anan walked over and saw a man sitting inside the car. "Brother Lu," Su Anan walked to the side of the carriage and called out to the noble man inside with a smile. "Anan." When the man saw Su Anan, he gently called out to her. After he finished speaking, he took out a gift box from the side. "2 days ago, I went on a business trip to France. I brought you perfume." Saying that, he handed it over to Su Anan. Su Anan was overjoyed. She and Fuxin were good friends, hence Lu Heng loved her. "Thank you, Brother Lu." Su Anan accepted the gift and said fawningly. Fuxin was not that happy as she pulled on Su Anan's clothes to urge her to leave quickly. "Don't forget what I said." Before he left, Lu Heng said to Fuxin, who was inside the carriage. Fuxin ignored him and dragged Su Anan forward. "Goodbye, Brother Lu." Su Anan politely bade farewell to Lu Heng. Fuxin glared at her. "Ignore him? What? What's wrong?" Su Anan didn't understand. Although Lu Heng and Fuxin were not close relatives, Lu Heng treated Fuxin better than his own sister. Many people had passed on that Fuxin and Lu Heng's relationship was not ordinary. Some even said that Fuxin was like her mother, a man who hooked up with the Lu family. "He won't let me stay in the dormitory," Fuxin said unhappily. "I don't want to go back to the Lu family." When Su Anan heard this, she realized that Fuxin was the complete opposite of her. She didn't want to live in a dorm. "Go back to the Lu family. I want to quarrel with Mingzhu again," Fuxin said. After the argument, her mother helped her. Lu Mingzhu was Lu Heng's sister. "Lu Heng can help you." Su Anan pursed her lips and laughed. She purposely said that, but never expected that just a few words caused Fuxin's face to turn red. "Don't talk nonsense." Seeing that she was getting anxious, Su Anan shrugged and asked, "Did I say anything? Lu Heng treated you as his own sister and treated you well, didn't he?" Fuxin looked at the smiling Su Anan and nodded. They were well aware of some things in their hearts. If they didn't bring it up, the other side wouldn't pursue the matter. Suanan was very clear about what was on Fuxin's mind. Why wasn't she willing to stay in the Lu family? No matter how nice Lu Heng was to her, they were still relatives in name. That couldn't be changed. Right? Suanan thought about the school's rule that students must stay in the dorms. And asked Fuxin, didn't you say that students must stay at school? Oh, Fuxin said, he didn't build a building. The school principal told me not to stay in the school. The trenches. Suanan evaluated to Lu Heng. Indeed, Lu Heng was being a bit too excessive towards Fuxin. This kind of feeling didn't feel like his brother was spending money on his sister, but instead had the feeling that Fuxin was a child bride to others. Because Fuxin didn't need to stay at school, Suanan brought her to her own dorm. Anan. Arriving at the bottom of the dormitory, Suanan heard the soft and tender voice of a girl coming from behind her. She and Fuxin turned around. It was Suya. Suanan and Suya's relationship was neither good nor bad. They were cousins, but since Suya and Jianmei were close, Suanan had nothing to say to her. Especially the last time when Su Zihan was in a small town, Suya had been ordered by the mother and daughter to insist that she was the one who pushed him. Towards the people who framed her, how could Suanan smile and pretend as if nothing had happened? She was not such a saint. Even if Suya said that she had only lied and harmed her because she was threatened by Su Zihan. Chapter 95. With that thought in mind, Suya walked closer and continued. And Anne, you also live in a building. We have company in the future. With that, Suya walked over and pulled Suanan's hand. Suanan pulled away from her, not wanting to talk to her. Suya flung Suanan's hand away, and the smile on her face stiffened in embarrassment. Anne, Aunt and Zihan forced me to do this last time. If I don't do this, they won't forgive me, Suya explained. Framing her was simply framing her. Suanan felt that there was no need to listen to Suya's explanation. Moreover, in order to get married into a rich family, Suya had always been trying to curry favor with Su Zihan and Jianmei. It was very normal for people to choose a side that was beneficial to them for their own benefits. But harming someone else was another way of putting it. Anan, why didn't the person who came to pick you up at the hospital the last time send you off? Suya followed and asked. Hearing Suya mention Gumo Cheng, Suanan raised her head and looked at him. She did not remember that when Gumo Cheng from the hospital came to fetch her, she had met Suya. Min, at that time, her heart was completely moved by Gumo Cheng. She did not take other matters to heart. Yes, Suanan indifferently replied. It didn't matter if Suanan was tyrannical or unruly, she didn't like other women coveting her man. With that said, Suanan brought Fuxin back to the dorm. Seeing that Suanan did not want to bother with her, she did not chase after her to ask about Gumo Cheng's matters. I'm right, Fuxin said to Suanan after entering the dormitory. Suanan looked at Fuxin in astonishment. Gumo Cheng, Fuxin said and became excited. Didn't you notice? When your sister mentioned Gumo Cheng, her eyes lit up. Gumo Cheng went to the hospital and brought Suanan away. Suanan had told Fuxin about this matter when she went back. After Fuxin finished listening, she kept praising Gumo Cheng for being handsome, and then there was the matter of Fuxin sending Suanan to watch the movie. Fuxin felt that Gumo Cheng was very popular. This time, when she stood in the crowd, she was like a bright flower with a bunch of bees and butterflies surrounding him. She wanted Suanan to grab hold of it quickly and settle the matter with him from the start. She met Gumo Cheng in the hospital? Fuxin asked again. Suanan replied indifferently. I don't have an impression of him. Fuxin could tell that Suanan was unhappy, so she smiled and said, Your jealousy is really strong. It's normal for Gumo Cheng to be able to enchant a group of young ladies with his handsome looks. Suanan rolled his eyes at her. Who likes girls to stare at their husbands, and even ask about coming to visit? He did not have that capability, but he did not like Suya asking him for information on Gumo Cheng. True, Fuxin laughed. However, you have to avoid bringing Gumo Cheng out to make a public appearance. I think he will give you a lot of trouble. Cast one petal after another. Call upon a group of people to immediately exterminate them, Suanan said domineeringly, and listened to Fuxin say that it was right again and again. With Suanan's temper, even the flowers of the same level as Suya wouldn't be a match for him. Don't worry, other than Gumo Cheng being a little blind on you, he will definitely wipe his eyes on others. He won't be able to hook away. Fuxin patted Suanan's shoulder and said, Why were these words praising Gumo Cheng, belittling her? Isn't it? Fuxin pretended not to understand. Until now, Gumo Cheng still thought that you were a pitiful whitey rabbit. When did he realize that it was your little wild cat that hit his car, and even gave him a thumbs up? Xiaoxin. Hearing that Fuxin mention this matter, Suanan panicked, and immediately covered her mouth. Ha ha. Seeing Suanan becoming anxious, Fuxin laughed. Fuxin continued, I really look forward to the day that Gumo Cheng discovers the truth. I wonder if he will beat you up from anger. Being mentioned by Fuxin, Suanan started to worry too. Fortunately, she didn't go to the racetrack again during this time. She had the 200,000 that Su Hua had given her, as well as the money she earned from working for the past 2 years, as well as the prize money she had earned from driving. Adding that up, it was around 500,000. She didn't know if it was enough to help treat her elder sister. Because on the first day of school, the school did not have any courses. At night, Suanan received a call from Gumo Cheng. Usually, he would take the initiative to call Gumo Cheng, and there was no one who took the initiative to call him. Suanan was curious. It was only the first day of school, yet Gumo Cheng took the initiative to call him. It can't be that he misses me. Suanan thought as she took her phone to the end of the corridor to make a call. An. Gumo Cheng's voice was very nice to listen to, and Suanan felt that his calling his name sounded even better. Anan. These two words were like feathers that made her heart itch, and she wanted to fly to his side. Hubby. Suanan replied, but when she called out to him, her face suddenly flushed red. Do you live in a school? Gumo Cheng asked. Not bad. Suanan turned around. In the past, she would often dump her at school because she felt that she was too troublesome. As a result, Suanan had long adapted to living at school. The only thing she was not used to was the fact that there was one less person by her side. She didn't even know when Gumo Cheng had entered her heart. She just felt that her heart was always empty when she couldn't see him. I'm not used to it, so don't stay in school. Gumo Cheng said again. That's what he called to say. Hubby, do you miss me? She said it straightforwardly. She was afraid that Gumo Cheng didn't like her being so direct. Yes. He did not expect Gumo Cheng to reply with a single word. Immediately after, the phone became silent. Suanan did not speak, and neither did Gumo Cheng. It was Gumo Cheng who spoke first. Sleep early. I'll come pick you up tomorrow afternoon. Pick her up? Where to? Suanan did not ask. All right, Suanan replied. Good night. After Gumo Cheng finished speaking, he hung up the phone. Listening to the beeping sounds from inside, Suanan was not willing to put the phone back in his pocket. The corner of her mouth curved into a smile as she held the phone in her hand. Although today was her first day in the dorm, she felt that she would definitely be able to sleep well and have a good dream. Mu Jinyu and Su Zihan's wedding date was set. Because Gumo Cheng had invested a large amount of money into the Su's project, Suhua's entire person became spirited and energetic. When the Mu family came over to discuss the marriage between Su Zihan and Su Zihan, he immediately agreed. Now that Suanan had already followed Gumo Cheng, it was impossible for him to marry Mu Jinyu again. Even if Suanan had ulterior motives towards him, from this point onwards, he would not allow Suanan to give up on Gumo Cheng and follow Mu Jinyu. As for now, Gumo Cheng had dumped Suanan, so he had to decide on Suanan's marriage. He had raised Suanan for so many years, she had to repay him. When he thought of Suanan, Suhua couldn't help but think of his ex-wife, who had passed away. Su Zihan marrying into the Mu family would be of great help to him. As the two families set their marriage dates, Mu Jinyu was actually very agitated. Wasn't marrying Su Zihan what he had always been hoping for? 2 years ago, when he was together with Su Zihan, he wanted to break the engagement with his and marry the Su Zihan he liked. Now that the marriage between him and Suanan had truly been annulled, the date of his marriage with Su Zihan had already been set. But he was not happy. Looking at the dazzling and beautiful Suanan in the hotel, Mu Jinyu could no longer remain calm. He realized that Suanan was so beautiful that she completely dominated Su Zihan, and Suanan following him made him want to take her back. Suanan had betrayed him. He had to come back and dump Suanan. Brother Jinyu? Mu Jinyu's mind was in a mess. Su Zihan called out to him a few times, but he did not hear her. Su Zihan panicked and pinched Mu Jinyu's arm, causing Mu Jinyu to recover from the pain. What's wrong? Mu Jinyu asked. Su Zihan looked at the absent-minded Mu Jinyu and asked unhappily, Brother Jinyu, what's wrong? I called you so many times. Why didn't you hear me? What are you thinking? Isn't it? She really wanted to ask if Mu Jinyu was thinking about Suanan. Then, he thought about how the two of them had a bad time because of Suanan at the entrance of the Su family. His mother had said that she had to endure. What if Mu Jinyu was angry and didn't want to marry her? Nothing. Mu Jinyu replied indifferently. Originally, he was upset about the matter of the marriage, but after hearing Su Zihan's words, he became even more agitated. Recently, he had started to dislike Su Zihan more and more. Brother Jinyu, which wedding dress do you think is better? Su Zihan endured the anger in her heart and revealed a smile on her face. After their last fight, the two of them were in no mood to take pictures of their wedding dresses. Under Jiang Mei's persuasion, Su Zihan and Mu Jinyu softened their relationship. She had long wanted to put on a beautiful wedding dress and marry Mu Jinyu, but Mu Jinyu's interest was low. Lady Mu and Jiang Mei were here to accompany them to pick out the wedding dress. Lady Mu originally did not plan to come over, but Jiang Mei said that she would choose a wedding dress for the couple and help them look at it. Since Jiang Mei had already said so, Lady Mu could not refuse. Actually, the reason they came was because Jiang Mei knew that Su Zihan and Mu Jinyu had an awkward situation regarding Suanan. She had to remind Lady Mu not to let Mu Jinyu be snatched away again. On the other side, Mu Jinyu perfunctorily replied, "Take a look yourself." The beautiful wedding dress that Su Zihan had worn could not even compare to the dress that Suanan had worn at the banquet in Su family. That was beauty. That was breathtaking. Mu Jinyu thought back to Suanan. He fretfully opened the buttons on his shirt and was no longer in the mood to take photos. When he owned it, he thought it was trash. But when he couldn't get it, he found out that he wanted it. Su Zihan looked at Mu Jinyu's absent-minded appearance and was annoyed in his heart. Brother Jinyu, you don't want to marry me? As he said that, Su Zihan's tears fell. If it was before, when Mu Jinyu saw that Su Zihan was crying, he would unconsciously step forward and hug her. But now, he was not in the mood for it. All he could think about was Su Anan.